I know there were reports like really early this week about possibly the Lakers going after Kyle Lowry. It ends up that um, the Raptors opted to not trade Kyle Lowry after all, that they're going to keep him until the end of the season. So that's good. I had been hearing about like Lamarcus Aldridge. He was actually him and the Spurs reached a buyout agreement, so there's still a possibility there. The Lakers are also waiting for Andre Drummond to also be bought out by the Cavaliers. So there was a lot of links to the Lakers. Ultimately, as of right now, nothing has happened. Now, with Aldridge, he could sign. You said it looked like he's going to sign with Miami. I wouldn't be surprised with that at all. But I also wouldn't be surprised if he did sign with the Lakers, because before he went to the Spurs, it was between the Spurs and the Lakers for him, and he obviously ended up going with the Spurs. And So I mean, there is a link to the Lakers. I mean, he might be like, well, what could have been. Maybe I should go over there, and then he could play the center position because he doesn't really move anymore. But he's still a pretty decent defender, and he's a good mid-range shooter, so that could really help us, and Anthony Davis and all that. But I think they're really going to go after Andre Drummond. There are reports that he is in LA as we speak, but he's just basically waiting for the Cavaliers to do the buyout. So we'll see if that happens. But Cody, your initial thoughts on the trade deadline? Were you happy the Lakers didn't do anything? Were you a little sad that nothing really transpired for the Lakers? Or are you kind of still like in the hope that hey, Andre Drummond or Lamarcus Aldridge or whoever might be available for you?
So I'm really glad that the Lakers didn't pull any moves at the trading deadline. I think one of the things about the trading deadline is I'm glad that the Lakers didn't make any knee jerk trades that weren't necessary. Like, for example, when we first signed LeBron, and I think his first season with us was 2018, where we traded away, Zubac for, I think, Mike Musala and a draft pick and a couple other things. And that essentially made our team even worse, considering when we were talking about that trade happening, Zubac was the better player, and he went to, I think he went to the Clippers.
Yeah, he went to the Clippers.
And so it essentially made our team worse because he was essentially the best player that we had outside of LeBron. But I'm just glad that the Lakers didn't make any terrible moves. And I would have been, to be truthful, I think the Kyle Lowry move would have been okay. I don't know how much I would have liked that, because we would have depleted almost half of our rotation guys, which means we would have signed guys to veteran minimums off of free agency that haven't played or had chemistry with the team. So I'm glad we didn't go down that route, because don't get me wrong, Kyle Lowry is a good player. But if we would have had to give up like Schroeder, THT, I think we would have had to give up Montrezl Harrell, and I think one other player. I don't know if it would have been worth it, to be honest. Like, that's a lot of our important players that we need to continue on the season while we don't have LeBron and AD because they're both injured. So yeah. I'm holding out hope that we do go after Drummond. I mean, I'm seeing on Twitter and on Instagram that it still looks like we're trending to be favorites for Andre Drummond, and I hope that remains the case. I saw that the Knicks are coming up as contenders for him to be signed as well, but I think that the Lakers have more to offer, considering that they're closer to a title than the Knicks are. So I'm holding out for that. Am I really enthused that Lamarcus Aldridge could be on the Lakers? Not really, because in my opinion, he's just another version of Marc Gasol, who's been okay, but he hasn't been the player that we were kind of hoping for offensively or even defensively. His minutes are kind of up and down, and his play is the same way. So I don't know if Lamarcus Aldridge would get us over the top, such as Andre Drummond, who's a defensive presence and a rebounder that we desperately need, that we can pair with AD when he comes back. But for the most part, I think the Lakers just need to hold on tight. We really need like Kuzma, Schroeder, to really step up, which they have been in this game. But, we definitely need to have our defense hold strong. We need points coming out of somewhere. We need to move the ball some more. I'd like to see THT get some more playing time to get more acclimated, because I'd love to see him in pick and roll with Montrezl Harrell to kind of solidify that second unit. But it's good thing though that we didn't make any moves, because any bad moves would have hurt us more come playoff time than just holding still with what we got. So
Yeah, I agree with you. The Kyle Lowry thing would have been okay, but with what was reported that we would have had to given up, I don't think it would have been worth it, and I think ultimately would be a bad decision. Now, if we got rid of all that and then we added Andre Drummond, I can see how that was their thought, but I think it would make it still a very difficult task to come out of the West. As the getting into the NBA finals. So ultimately, I'm glad they didn't do anything. I'm not a huge fan of Kyle Lowry. I think he's good. I think he would be a great third option, no question. But like I said, giving up as much as there was talk about giving up, I would not be okay with it. And then I wouldn't mind getting a Lamarcus Aldridge. I know he's a lot older, but he can shoot. And Andre Drummond, I do like. He's a good rebounder, but Drummond, he can't shoot. He's an old school big guy. You can make the argument, yes, he is one of those guys that, um, you know, is a guy that we need. Like when we had JaVale McGee or Dwight Howard, those guys were, essentially just the rebounders and every now and then getting those passes. So, yeah, Drummond would fit. But I would, as a third option, I would like Aldridge better. Is he what he was? No, of course not. But I think he would fit nicely because now he's not a focal point or the second focal point. He's kind of, the third option, and sometimes maybe not even that. So I would be okay with getting either one of them, really. Drummond's younger, so you want the younger guy if you can, but Aldridge would be an interesting pick.